Welcome back, folks. My name is LastKnownMeal, and today we're gonna be talking about Cyberpunk 2077. Over the past few months since the game came out, I've been getting a lot of questions from people asking me what do I think about the future of this game when it comes to updates, DLCs, and expansions. And people told me to cover all of those leaks that happened before, like everything we're gonna see in Cyberpunk 2077, and people listed a crazy amount of DLCs that Cyberpunk is going to put out because that was allegedly a leak from the company. I told everyone long time ago that those leaks are usually fake, and we won't know what CDPR is actually planning until they actually reveal something. But there is a few things we can take a look at which happened, or in the past month, that can kind of tell us what to expect. So first off, let's talk about the first DLCs that came out. The alternative look for Johnny Silverhand, the jacket, I think they added a new vehicle in the game, or basically a new design of the vehicle that you can get. And lots of people said, is that it? Is this really what you actually had planned for Cyberpunk's first DLC? To be honest, yes. The Witcher had similar DLCs. The Witcher also had alternative looks for Yennefer, for Ciri. It had different armor pieces for Geralt. It also had a few quests now and then that you can actually get. And I believe they also added various new hairstyles for Geralt in those free DLCs. So basically those are not really huge pieces of content, and they will never give you what you actually want. At least that wasn't the case until today. Because today CDPR is a very much different situation. Cyberpunk, when it came out, obviously a lot of people were having issues running the game. And personally, I enjoyed the game, but I played on PC at the same time. But when I was playing Cyberpunk 2077, I imagined what this game could have been. And that's usually not a good sign to think about when you're playing a video game, when you're saying like, oh man, this could have been so much better, but things happened as they did. So first off, I know this is gonna sound bad for a lot of people because they don't want to face the facts, but first off, polishing has to be done. Like, in order to implement anything new into this game, new features, mechanics, whatever, and that means if they want to do that in the first place, the backend code has to be flowing. That means all of the issues with the game itself, the crashes, the frame rate issues and everything, things not loading in, those things have to be fixed first and polished until you can build anything really on top of it. Because if you just start adding different features and mechanics now, it's going to break the game. And I think that was also the reason what happened with Cyberpunk 2077 during its development, where you actually had different opinions on what the game is going to be. You have probably, I'm not saying I don't know, it's just what I think is that you have a lot of in-company fighting about decisions, about mechanics, about everything, and that usually leads to cutting out some mechanics or having mechanics which are not properly polished, or ultimately just having to sacrifice a lot of the things because you have to ship the game on time. And that was the problem with Cyberpunk. They had to basically cut out a lot of things so they can push the game at the day that they wanted, because people thought for the longest time when Cyberpunk was being delayed that they're polishing the game, but in reality that wasn't the case. They were pretty much actively working on the game when those delays happened, and polishing was far away from being properly done. So basically I do believe that those mechanics were still being implemented during those times, and polishing was nowhere near that. So the first thing that they have to solve obviously is the back engine, or the engine itself. Now I do believe that Red Engine is good, because when you look at the loading of the game, it loads into the game like extremely fast. And overall as the engine is pretty good, but you can see also a lot of problems that you can have on that engine if you don't have a lot of time to polish things. That means LOD pop-ups, which is basically level of detail. Let's say when you're driving through the city or walking through the city, you kind of see grass, popping out sometimes, or maybe you see a vehicle in front of you, it looks like low resolution, then it loads into the, high definition of that vehicle. That's something that Cyberpunk had, those loading issues, especially if you were playing on previous gen consoles. you're actually going to see those things happen, you know, things not loading in as they're getting close to you. They're close to you, but they still haven't loaded in, and then you wait for a second, oh, it's loaded now. That's that delay in LOD pop-ups that happen. That's basically a sign that the game needed a lot more time to be polished so that those LOD transitions could be more seamless, so the actual player doesn't see them, because that ruins the immersion itself. So obviously that's another huge problem, and I do believe that they are not going to be able to solve a lot of things when it comes to the, you know, previous gen on Cyberpunk 2077, because they will have to sacrifice something, and that's something I had seen. In order to achieve certain frame rate and something, they had to cut out, like, let's say, population that appears in front of you, or the amount of cars, and that's going to be, I believe, the case with this. Now, that's also something I noticed on PC as well, where they actually just sacrifice the amount of vehicles and in people in the city so they can achieve that. And the problem comes is that the city becomes too empty. There is no one out there, and basically, like, it can look great on images, but once you actually go deeper into it, you know, it's not that. You don't really have this sense of having a living, breathing city. So in that case, first the back end needs to be solved. That's it. So first that. On top of that, let's look at the DLCs and expansions. Now, obviously, their first expansion is going to be extremely important, because it's going to say, like, alright, what have you learned from the development and release of Cyberpunk 2077? If that has issues, you are going to see a huge backlash on that as well. But I believe that the strategy for DLCs needs to change. So personally, I would love to see car customization. I would love to see more you know, character customization, in the sense of having more augmentations. Now, those things are probably not going to be there, but yeah. Next, I want to see more animations for the character, which increase the immersion of the game. That means sitting, having an ability to eat, to drink, having those things is very much important for the immersion of people. And they like to do it. Like, I hate comparing games, but still, Red Dead Redemption, like, you can take a cup of coffee, walk around with it, sit down, drink it. Those are small things that games like to do, that players really appreciate. And that's something which would definitely help the game itself. Now, they can't really solve the story of the game. Like, you know, the story is there. You know, some people like it, some people dislike it, but that's gonna stay how it is. That's not going to change. They can actually see what they can make when it comes to RPG elements and have more of those choices, like choices that are different than they weren't in the vanilla game. They can do that in the expansion. That's going to tell us if they learned something about actually, you know, Cyberpunk 2077, if they have any proper plans for it. Now, I still don't know why they haven't implemented a way for us to change the look of our character. That's also something which is kind of necessary. You know, you live in Cyberpunk world where changing your face and your attributes and details on it is quite normal. So not having that in a game about transhumanism is just mind-blowing to me. So obviously those things have to arrive. Now, besides that, I would love to see more activities around the city. Now, how is that gonna be doable? I don't know, but I would love to see more activities in the city itself. So that's basically what I want to see, just more immersive parts, just more immersive things about the game. But if you want to do that, you have to fix the backbone of the game. The engine has to be properly done. And when it comes to like big expansions, like Crystal Palace is definitely one of my main, how would I say, main things that I think are going to happen. They have been teasing Crystal Palace a lot, and Crystal Palace is kind of a, you know, logical thing to do. The size of Crystal Palace is enough to fit into a DLC. Now, is Crystal Palace gonna be the first, second, third DLC expansion, whatever? Is it going to ever appear? We don't know. But Crystal Palace is definitely something that is very much important in the Cyberpunk universe, and that is definitely something which can provide a nice contrast to the vanilla game. Then there is also this whole story with Mr. Blue Eyes. I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't played it, but obviously people who did play with the Mr. Blue Eyes and everything that has been happening around that story is definitely something I would love to see, because that story was damn fine, especially having people follow you around the city, those rings and everything. I do believe it's connected to something much bigger which is going to happen in the city, and I think that that could be the first expansion, you know, just the expansion on that story, because if you want to count in Crystal Palace, they will need a lot of time, because that's a whole structure they would need to create, a whole new area they would have to create, so obviously that's gonna take a lot more time. So yeah, like obviously those are the things I want to see. Are we going to see them? I don't know, because I don't believe leaks and everything which has been happening. And I said to people again, don't think they're gonna do it just because you saw a leak, because you're gonna get excited, they're not going to release that, and you're ultimately going to be disappointed. So I wouldn't believe that until I see something official from CDPR. Now the question is, have they solved their company's issues? We don't know if they had solved their company's issues from the inside. We don't know that. Hopefully they did, because ultimately that's going to determine their future and the future of their games and their IPs and The Witcher and everything. So yeah, I'm not gonna jump on the train and go say like, oh yes, great things are happening for Cyberpunk. Now, one thing which very much surprised me in a very positive light was actually the hiring of modders. They, I believe, hired 5 modders to help them out with the game. That has been something which kind of went circles around, and people accepted that. People were really happy about it. So, at least from that perspective, hiring modders to help on, you know, developing the game further and actually, you know, upgrading it is a step in the right direction. At least they're taking that step and not a step of Take-Two and Rockstar, where they're basically suing their mods. So at least, you know, on that front, it was also a great PR move. Let's face it, when you're making these moves, you also think about PR. But besides the PR move, I'm very much happy that those guys are gonna be working on Cyberpunk 2077. They're gonna get paid for it, and they also have the knowledge to actually create something. So obviously that's a win-win situation for everyone. So from that sense, things are kind of looking better from the outside. We still don't know how are things on the inside, but yes, this game will still need quite some time until, let's say, people get what they wanted, like in those terms of upgrading. But I think the first thing would be just to make the game polished on all platforms as much as you can. Of course, you're never going to get what you want on the, you know, previous gen consoles. They are running on older software. Sadly, CDPR management was fully aware of that, but ultimately they wanted to release for those previous gen consoles. Developers paid the price for it because they had to work simultaneously on every single platform out there, which was the worst decision they could have made. And I am 100% certain that Cyberpunk Next Gen Edition is gonna be delayed to 2022. There are hints about it, because in my opinion, they're gonna be using this November-December area to release The Witcher remaster, The Witcher 3 remaster, which is basically developed by another company. It was outsourced to the same company which ported The Witcher 3 onto Switch. So they're not doing that. They're actually working on the Cyberpunk Next Gen Edition, which is not coming out this year. I doubt it. I doubt they're gonna be able to have it up until the end of the year. Anything is possible, and I strongly believe it's gonna be moved to 2022. I know people don't like to hear it, but that's just what I think from everything we kind of saw with because we're getting closer. It's September. You know, the main game still has issues. Things are still very much rocky for CDPR. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll have more videos like this in the future, and we'll see what you say. But yeah, tell me down below in the comments, what do you think about all of this? What are your thoughts about the future DLCs and updates and expansions for Cyberpunk 2077? Yeah, let me know. I'll be going through comments. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check us out on Twitter and Discord. Join our community there, where we talk further when it comes to video games, more in detail and everything. Also, as I said, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button if you want to stay updated with the latest gaming news. I talk about a lot of RPG games, so you can kind of check it out. Thank you, this is LKM again signing out, and huge thanks to my current Patreon supporters. Bye bye.